It's the first Sunday after Labor Day. For many, as we've heard, that means back to school. It means lunch boxes and magic markers and book bags if you're lucky, and sneakers and notebooks and electronics, and new advisors and old friends or rooms of strange people. For some, it means leaving your child at the door and watching the door close. Or it means saying goodbye to your parents or whoever cares for you because you have no choice. It's time to go back to school. For some, it's a season of refresh, a new look, a new start. I remember looking at catalogs, paper catalogs, thinking about what my first day back outfit would be. I know, I'm telling you, here comes. The one I'm remembering now was from middle school in the era of Farrah Fawcett. You remember? Come on, remember Farrah Fawcett? Thank you. For those who don't know, she was one of the original Charlie's Angels, and of course you may remember the signature feathered hair. So then I had my own full head of hair. But on that day, as I was preparing to head back to school, I didn't just rely on my natural assets. Oh no. I also had the red and white striped Nikes. Anybody remember that? That Farrah Fawcett made famous on that poster where she scooched down on a skateboard. This is going to get sad. I had color-coordinated tube socks that I pulled all the way up, white with red stripes to match the shoes, and gym shorts, red with white piping to match the socks, to match the shoes, and an alligator shirt, remember alligator shirts, red and white striped, and then the pièce de résistance, red terry cloth sweatbands, and a matching band for the head. I got a photo, I'll show you if you pay me. Was it 5th grade or 6th grade? Lord have mercy. Because you know what happened at school that day. Slammed against the lockers. Homo. Sissy. Faggot. Did my parents let me go to school dressed like that? Did I let my 2 kids, did we, Nick, do the equivalent for the past 2 decades? This is the first year since our kids went to nursery school that my husband, Nick, wave, and I, it's a family affair, that we haven't had a have a good first day goodbye moment. We dropped our youngest child, Penelope, at college in Massachusetts 3 weeks ago. Yes, we get to walk around the apartment naked, and that's nice. Yes, I can eat my dinner in a fancy restaurant, but as Sinead O'Connor shouted, nothing compares. Nothing compares to you. To you, dear Penelope, are you watching? And you, dear Alice. We're stumbling around, brokenhearted, at a loss. This summer, about 2 weeks before we dropped our daughter at college, I was on vacation asleep. I awoke in the middle of the night to hear my daughter, Penelope, shouting, "There's been an accident. You have to come." I ran, dazed, to find the golf cart my daughter, my niece, and their 2 friends had been riding home on. In the dark, by accident, they had driven it off an embankment. My daughter had jumped into bushes and was just a little scraped up. At the bottom of a 25-foot drop on the rocks was the golf cart, bleeping and flashing and bright as all headlights, and my niece and her friend, who hit their heads on the rocks. We spent the night in the ER. They were going to be okay. We came home the next morning aware of how fragile the line is between safe and screaming, fun and falling 25 feet to the rocks below. And then we took our daughter to another state and left her there. That feeling, that bad dream. Did I accidentally leave my kid in the supermarket, in the subway? Whose terrible idea was it to take our child away and leave them? Who will keep them safe? Enter our text, to those who are of a fearful heart. Here we have words from Isaiah the prophet, or one of at least 3 authors whose words have likely been combined into what we now call the book of Isaiah. Hebrew Bible scholar Walter Brueggemann wrote that the book of Isaiah can be read as an extended meditation on the destiny of Jerusalem into and after the exile to Babylon. According to many scholars, our scripture passage today is understood to come after exile from family, from home, from ancestors buried in the garden. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong and do not fear. Imagine the writers of this vision, survivors who were separated from all they held dear. Imagine the hell they had lived through: invasion, destruction of their holy temple, occupation, and exile. The most direct route from Jerusalem to the ruins of Babylon, located south of Baghdad today in Iraq, is said to be 750 miles long. But the exiles, the evacuated, would have walked along the rivers, approximately 1,700 miles, to Babylon, where they'd be strangers in a strange land for the next 50 or 60 years. In the face of all that trauma, our passage today, a vision cast thousands of years ago by people just steeped in trauma, is about God's promise of freedom, of restoration, of a coming joyful day in which the burning sand shall become a pool and the thirsty ground springs of water. The audacity of the vision appeals to me. But there are things that aren't so appealing. The framing of disabled people, who the text names the blind, the deaf, the lame, people we know who are made in the image of God and are conduits and recipients of God's love just as they are used once again as the object lesson to prove God's almighty power. That's not the God of love at Middle that we know. No. Right? And this superhero God, the one who saves, here is your God. God will come with vengeance, with terrible recompense. God will come and save you. Didn't happen when half of our activist community at ACT UP died young. Didn't happen in Gaza, or to the hostages, or to migrants who died on the way to the border, or crossed over to the land of the free, greatest country on earth, only to face the greatest nightmare in cells and in streets with no rights and no way out. Our nation's parties hardening right now their proposed policies against those who are just trying to cross a desert to get to a stream of God's promised freedom. We here at Middle know that broken theology inspires violence, instills fear, and poisons our ability to imagine God's realm in which all are liberated here on earth. All are free. Never forget that is what the love of God calls for. So, what's an aging Charlie's Angel wannabe to do with a text like this? Well, when Charlie, read God, needs help protecting the vulnerable and putting an end to injustice, they call on their angels. Anybody remember their names? Sabrina, Kelly, and Jill, friends who fight crime, not as lone rangers, but in community. So following the angel's lead, I reached out to two people, one an old friend and the other a new, to see if together we could solve the case of the superhero God who allows for continuous suffering and the mystery of how people who have experienced extreme suffering are still able to choose hope and love over fear. First, an old friend, Kendrick Kemp. Anyone know Kendrick? What a wonderful person who may be watching right now. Hi, Kendrick. When Kendrick was 20, he had a series of strokes, after which he could not speak. Slowly, he has worked over the course of his lifetime to come to voice. Now, he's a prophet, speaking into existence a Black power liberation theology of disability. So you won't be surprised that Kendrick didn't love the part of this passage about God healing the lame. He told me that he prefers the Bible story in Genesis, in which Jacob wrestles with God in the form of an angel, and ever after, Jacob limps. God makes him that way. And from then on, Jacob's limp is the sign of his intimacy with God. Yes. I said to Kendrick, but what of the God who saves? Are you satisfied with a God who does not keep you and your people from falling, from bondage, from police violence, from plague? Both Kendrick and I were students of Dr. James Cone, a founding voice of Black liberation theology at Union Seminary uptown. I know others in the room were too. Just as Dr. Cone pushed me really hard, to articulate my queer theology as I came of age at the height of the AIDS crisis, he had pushed Kendrick to understand who God is through the particular struggle and witness of Kendrick's body and life. Kendrick and I laughed as we remembered Dr. Cone's inimitable voice. In class, Dr. Cone would rail, "Are you satisfied with a God who isn't as strong as your parent, as your president, as your executioner, as your doctor? Or is God all-powerful and just cool with your pain?" In answer to the question about the superhero God, Kendrick concluded, how about let's not do God as superhero? Instead, how about God as friend? Kendrick said, I need to have a God who understands and helps me with this life, who is safe space. My God helps me through all that, the agony. God helps me deal with it like a friend. God holds me accountable because I have to do something with this political state too. I can't stay home. That's what I want to do. I want it to go away. When I asked Kendrick what he's doing about it, he said, I'm going to vote. And I go to different groups and share. Sometimes I'm just there listening to different voices. NA, AA, church groups, Black men groups that I co-lead. I don't talk over them. Just be there. I cannot stay by myself with all this. You called to have a conversation about it. That's the beauty. After talking with Kendrick, I began to think maybe God's love saves not like a superhero, but like a friend. That's a different kind of saving. It doesn't protect us from calamity, but it can get us through. Could it be that it is that kind of love that is the unbreakable, unbeatable promise of God? Here I was with my old friend on the phone, practicing what I'm preaching today. Two fearful hearts reminding each other of the friendship we have with each other and with God. So Kendrick was the old friend I reached out to. And then there's Tim Koch, someone I hope to be friends with someday. Preparing for this sermon, I went up to Union Seminary for the first time in a long while to the library reading room that looks straight out of Hogwarts from Harry Potter. It's glorious. Reading through the standard commentaries on Isaiah, I saw a book that was not on the shelf when I was a student. the Queer Bible Commentary. Just when I laid my hands on it, the librarian called out, "Closing in 3 minutes." I jotted down the name of the author of the chapter on Isaiah, Tim Koch, and when I got home, I Googled him, found his email address at the university where he works, wrote him, and asked if he could send me something he's written, anything on Isaiah. And he sent 2 pieces that blew me away. Here's what Tim Koch wrote. As a queer living with AIDS, as someone who has no more time for anything that is not about the work of liberation, he's done with reading the Bible apologetically. No more grappling with the clobber texts, twisting age-old patriarchal homophobic frameworks into origami blessings. No. For real. Tim is only interested in the Bible inasmuch as it is about the work of liberation for all God's children, including all LGBTQIA+ folk, Black, differently abled, undocumented, Gazan, held hostage, starving in Sudan. Where the Bible is all in on love, Tim is right there with it. Where it's not, he's out. So he came up with the word of depoizing his relationship with the Bible, which I thought was over my head until I realized he meant Home Depot, depoizing. Tim writes, we should read the Bible in the way a person can walk into Home Depot and walk out deciding, nope, nothing in there that's useful to me today. Right, I love this. We can read the Bible just as a person can walk into Home Depot and buy whatever they want and leave the rest. We could read the Bible just as a person can buy a toilet seat they found at Home Depot and use it as a picture frame, disconnected entirely from the intent of the patriarchal authors, the patriarchal redactors, the patriarchal canonizers, the popes, the past presidents, the architects of our oppression. And that's all right. That's our right. As Kendrick Kemp said to me about Jacob limping, because God made him that way, versus God proving God's power on the backs of the lame. Take what you can use, Macky. Here's what Tim Koch wrote about the authors whose words make up the book of Isaiah. Lost people with fearful hearts, yearning for freedom, for liberation, for joy, as best they knew how inside patriarchy and trauma, exile and radical loss. Tim wrote, we've had first Isaiah in the 8th century BCE, second Isaiah in the 2nd century BCE, and even third Isaiah later in the 6th or in the 5th century BCE. Sounds like Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis. Get ready. It is time we be the prophets, the Isaiah we've been waiting for. It is time we, sweet, fearful hearts who know from struggle, but are committed to love, period, anyway. Okay, I embellished. It is time we dream the world for which we long into being. Tim writes, be forth Isaiah, I dare you. Psh. Be forth Isaiah. Y'all, we have reason to fear. We're living in apocalyptic times, and we all know that children from Gaza to the Sudan to Uganda to Haiti, in deportation cells, in the New York City school system, and in classrooms all over our nation are dying. Winder, Georgia. That's where my kid lives. From systemic oppression, war, poverty, gun violence, as we speak. One of our children, Nick, lives 204 miles north of here. One of our children lives 204 miles south. For real, I looked it up. What are we going to do if a bomb drops? Which way should we head? When September 11th happened, remember, I was calling you. You were on 57th Street, leashing Sweetie Pie, our dog, and preparing to walk up the West Side Highway to the GW Bridge, hoping someone would pick us up on the other side. Fearful hearts, who will dream the world for which we long and describe it so deliciously that we are enlivened to bring it into being at Middle Church, in our chosen families, in our politics, or forget politics, in our alternative communities. But no, don't forget politics, because too many people's lives are at stake. What vision is so delicious that those who are terrified and unsure where to place their vote and their hope will turn their backs on despair or apathy or the politics of destruction and choose love. We're in a long, long, long line of fearful hearts imagining a better world, and it is on us to draw what inspires us from the visions of our ancestors and dream new dreams of liberation for all in this time and for the generations that will follow us. With Kendrick's and Tim's help, I've come to believe that when we have the audacity to envision a healed world in community and practice it, we give and receive love, which restores our hope and is balm to our fear. And there it is that we encounter God, who is the source and spirit of love, period. It is in the work of love, loving, being loved, relationally, communally, and politically, that we meet God intimately. Friends, if you, like me, woke up this morning with a fearful heart, and I mean this, look around you. Look around. You're in the right place. Let us dream dreams of love and liberation for all. Practice it here together, and in so doing, be intimate with God. Amen.